Um, Hello again. I'm Alice, and I run my small studio, Oddity, which is based in Hong Kong, as we already discussed. My key role here is being big brain every day. To be serious, I'm responsible for development of creative concepts and design for our projects. And to begin with my little story behind it, a bit of childhood memories and how everything is started. I guess in my case, it would be very straightforward because as long as I remember myself, I was always drawing and always was with a pencil and papers around me. There was no question what I'm going to do in my life. So there was no search and sudden realization that I want to be in visual art. It was just a matter of what kind of form it would take in my practice. Would it be painting? Would it be sculpture? Would it be design or architecture or photography? There's so many different ways that you can do, especially if you're a tiny child. And as early as around 4 or 5, yeah, I was a serious child, I made a decision to become an architect. And this is one of the memories, me walking with the father in the street, and he is asking me, I'm asking him, sorry, what is the building? And he said, this is Architecture and Art Academy. And I said, I will study there. That was it. That was that simple, that early, that I know what I'm going to do. And of course, you can imagine, I had quite a few years ahead of me before I could start my studies in the Art and Architecture Academy. And all these years, I was actually preparing for education. I was painting, drawing sculpture classes, art history. I was studying composition, color theory. All of the basic visual perceptions were part of my childhood. I quite like it. I quite enjoyed it. And by the time that it was time to start an education, it's not by surprise, but I I realized that I wasn't interested in the basics anymore. And more than that, I was already exhausted and lost a lot of, I would say, native excitement of the magic of creation. I had a lot of questions to my tutors. They were quite uncomfortable for them. They were left without any answers. And my dream was already solid with this oppressive experience of education system. Maybe that the facts of education in my country is quite authoritarian. And I decided and then that I'm not going to take another 6 years of my life, and I quit it. So at the end, I didn't finish any education in architecture or the graphic design. And of course, quitting academy meant an end to that dream of being an architect. So I had to find another form to pursue what left out of my passion. Design? Well, I was quite, how to say, skeptical about it. I had misconception that interior design and the graphic design are not expressive or made decorations at their best, or at the worst, they are like a billboard. While I wanted to create a work that will be breathtaking, I wanted to create the work that would inspire and have impact on people's life. So I might sound a pulling here, but I was 17 years old and I really want to do something important. Of course, when you quit education and you're continuing to study, you need to start to work. And I ended up to taking a job in the web. While design wasn't my passion at the time, I found comfort in web design. I could compare it with architecture. You create visual space for people to navigate. And I saw web as a complex system. It's at the same time quite liberating and probably because there is no dogma. Back then, there was not much of the rules, how you exactly need to do web design. You can really go crazy and wild and experiment a lot. So I started to work as a junior, and unbelievably, in 1 year, I became an art director in the studio. Studio got noticed in the small town where I was located. Everyone was knowing what we're doing, and I was doing presentations to big clients, hiring people, managing processes, and all of that at the age of about 19. It wasn't something I wanted to do. It was very I would say, commercial and a lot of effort to convey ideas, to present them. While I was just hitting into design, I was really interested, like, what can make a design good, how it can change my perception that this is a mere decoration. I want to experience that. I want to craft it. I want to spend my time in there, not in management, not that fast. So I quitted that little company in my town city and moved to the capital, and then I moved to Dubai, and then I moved to Hong Kong. So I always, in my journey, when I look back, I feel I was reaching some point, thinking if I'm going the right direction, and then moving again to see if I am in the right track. So by the time I moved to Hong Kong, I'm not. I was feeling I'm not fitting anywhere. I was always trying to find something different out of the design roles. I just couldn't make any pretty layouts and be happy about the form the way it is. I always had to find a reason. I always had to find a story, a joke, or something to hold on emotionally, and that this story, that reason, could explain what I'm actually doing. Also, I was always drawn to physical world. I was missing that when I was working in the web field. So when I was in Hong Kong, I decided to start it on my own. And it's all started out of desire to express myself, to be free in the thinking and free in acting, taking decisions, taking wrong decisions, so I can practice design the way I think it should be. And all I know, because I didn't complete any educations, everything I did was based on my own knowledge, my misperceptions at the same time, and beliefs of what design should be. And at the moment, what I can tell, what I believe in is what makes a good design is actually art. A lot of people will say, what are you saying? Design is not art, art is not design, designers are not artists. But the more I practice design, the more I think that design is art, the more I move away from the templates and market expectations where everything looks alike. It allows me to go wild with my ideas, and I can create these wild ideas and give them a chance to be tested, to be challenged, to compete with the best practices and prove that they will work. So when you do practice design as art, you start look for inspiring concept instead of pretty shapes. You aim to provoke emotions. You aim to resonate with people and become memorable. But isn't it really desired results in every client's brief that we have? Even we say design is not art, but really the art is the answer to that desires. And when I think from that perspective, I'm really getting much more excited of a design practice, and I really want to do it. So why I don't do just the art? Probably because I think it's quite messy, and it's quite remote from people on its own, in its pure state and form. But when is it combined with the design, is really connected to the life and really can be memorable. And as you can see from that really brief and short introduction to my journey, I had a bit of this and that. I was painting, I was doing a bit of an architecture, a bit of web, a bit of management, a bit of practicing all different sides of the graphic design, and now coming into the branding. So I felt like mixing media, and it's a very aspiring part of the process. And I believe as creative mind, we shouldn't create any borders and allow our freely merge from the one practice to another one. So there should be no borders and no doubt to crossing them. And when we create something, you shouldn't stop thinking, oh, I'm doing typography. Now is a territory of a layout, or is it something experimental, or is it too artistic? We shouldn't even think about it. We just go through the process, get the reach to the some point when we complete the work, and just let it happen, let it unfold, and gain new experiences. With all of that thinking, I just wanted to share a few of the projects that we work on and try to show that beliefs through them rather than just talking over the black slides and, and conveying my ideas without the visuals. So for the one of the project that I wanted to talk today is actually a very simple item. It's the menu for a bar in Hong Kong, which is called the Old Man. We worked with these guys for quite a while. We did for them brand identity a few years back. We did for them quite a couple of menus. And at some point, we sat down with the bar manager and start looking into what do we want to do for the, I think it was the third menu in a row, what we created. And it was quite uninteresting to do just a single page or pick very crazy materials and papers to spend time on printing. We wanted to do something much more artistic and experimental. We both come to idea to do a menu for the bar that would look like a magazine. It is about A4 size and it has 144 pages of a content inside, which is quite insane for the little bar, which is always high volume, very busy, to have such a big and complex menu. When I first presented this concept to the operation of the bar, to the whole team, everyone was shocked. Everyone was like, what are you doing? You're crazy. It's not going to work. We need single page menu that everyone can get content right away. No one going to read it. No one going to flip it. There was a lot of pushback. Yeah, they have to be very delightful for a client, for the bar manager who said, well, let's give a try, because he also wanted to challenge the market and see, could we do something differently? So we sat down and designed that menu. We decided we tried to balance quite artistic expression in there and also go for quite functional decisions in design that can help it to be still quite easy to operate. So for example, the menu, we got on the front a list of all of the cocktails that you have inside. If you're coming back to the bar, you already know and familiar with the drinks, you can quickly pick just from the front without even opening that. And it was put into the, I call it vinyl cover, so it is protected from the water. So it's not just a paper magazine that will get destroyed immediately. Also, it's not a leather cover, which is very often used in the bar industries. And we tried to keep it like protected in the same time. So inside the menu was following really the structure of the magazine. The bar had 10 drinks, 10 special drinks in the menu, and each drink had a little story behind it. From a cocktail point of view, bar manager come up with the idea of discovering different shades of a Hemingway life. The bar called The Old Man is connected to Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man in the Sea. So it's all about the writing and typography. We're making a pure sense in that case. So the magazine, I think, sorry, I forgot to mention, magazine shape come from the idea of the bar, like it's writer, we want to do something look like a book, like a magazine, something you do want to read or maybe don't want to read, but it really feels that impressive as a literature piece. So he had a few ideas of how he want to work with the cocktails, and he gave us these different sections. So he was looking to discover different shades of a Hemingway from a different perspective of the flavors. There were a few cocktails that were talking about Hemingway as the voyager or the traveler, that he visited different places. He lived in Cuba. He really liked Paris in Paris. There's some cocktails that were inspired by his literature career. For example, the first novel he wrote, he was just 10 years old when he did that, and when he got the Nobel Prize, and so on and so on. So he already had quite a conception of what the drinks are about, and we had a chance to create a visual stories for each of the drink. What we decided to do for that menu, we decided to take each cocktail and create a photographic story to represent the drink. So, for example, we were studying what was Hemingway's home, what kind of pattern was in his coach, what kind of trees he had by the entrance. Since he had some cats also, we tried to bring that little connections between the cocktail story and the visuals that we capture in the menu together. In the same time, mixing them with a Hong Kong, because bar based in Hong Kong, when they pay homage to local culture, local aesthetics, and also when you are a visitor of the city and you go to the bar and have a drink and you see quite recognizable, let's say a taxi car or trash bin from a Hong Kong streets, you feel quite connected. You feel like, oh, what's that? So each of the page, each of the story of a cocktail really had a reason. So I can really go through one by one and tell why there is this particular photo or that particular text. But most importantly, what this menu affected with the operations, and when we launched it, we saw how like the reaction was quite interesting. So there was two sides. First of all, when people received the menu, they had a lot of self-entertainment while just flipping through the pages. They might not know what this picture stands for. They might not get the entire story because they don't want to read, and it's like a fun time in the bar who's going to read it. But in the same time, they start looking and picking, like they buy visuals, by colors. It was much easier for them to pick the cocktail while they being entertained in the bar while they're waiting for drinks or waiting for the friends to arrive. But from the operation point of view, it was much more interesting, the impact. When a bartender have to give the menu to the customer, he cannot just silently hand it over and say, here your menu. He had to make an introduction. He had to explain at least a little bit, what is that? Why is that big? What to expect inside? At the end, this little change, I would say, in the presentation, the little extra requirement from the team affected that everyone who work in the bar know the menu by the heart. They really, first of all, they were inspired, but also they had a point of a conversation. And the service level started going up quite drastically. So people were coming there, and the people were coming there because they like the idea of the menu. They want to talk to bartender. They want to understand why there is this and that pictures and what is the story. And there's a lot of jokes also hidden in there. There was quite sexual jokes also, or like you go to the romantic dinner and you throw flowers afterwards, and so on and so on. So it became a really entertaining piece and really affected the operations. And in the end, the bar got again noticed by the best bars in Asia. They have now queue of the people outside, and the menu is selling. People are buying the menu, which for us in Hong Kong sounds like unbelievable. Who's going to buy the menu? But whenever we have tourists coming into the bar, they're all happy, like they're all asking, like, do they have a copy? Can we buy it? Can we take it with us? Or they just make it as a gift to some of the customers. So the menu become a standing point of the bar, and we know that design supported them into like a next step and evolution of their own business. So here's a little example of when we take the quite traditional task of making a menu, but we start thinking of the menu if it will be a piece of art and how we can change it, how we can design it with that kind of practice being in place. Some of the details of the menu, like when we took pictures, we were taking pictures ourselves also in our team. We're quite, like I take some photography, also my colleague, our director, he really good with analog photography. So he took some pictures also in here. And some notes was also combined with our identity that we developed early when we created different visuals out of typography. So we really were mixing between together some visuals and some typeface layouts that become a part of the storytelling. For example, mimicking the books on the shelf in the Hemingway's house, or doing the typographic layouts that will represent the waves and the water in the Hong Kong shores. Or one of the cocktail was about relationship with his wife. Hemingway was married for 4 times. And it was always a drama, and always was broken heart of a woman. So we were thinking of the pictures like you can see through the glass, you're crying, you cannot see anything, it's really blurry, and your heart is broken. So we broke the typography into little pieces. So each of that layout has this connection with the cocktail and had a little story behind it. Another project that I can walk through probably a little less in details, because I believe that one you might already saw somewhere, sometime. Back into 2021, I think, I might be really wrong with dates, when the COVID was all around us, and in Asia it was really harsh, a lot of lockdowns, a lot of frozen projects. So we got a bit of time to create our own product. And in this, when we got the time, we were thinking what we can do, and a lot of design studios are doing posters or printed brochures. So it's usually connected with printed matters and papers with what is a part of our work all the time. And in this case, We wanted to do a brand and a project that will be a real product that we can create from a concept to actually produce the product and start selling the product. So we can gain a bit of experience also as our clients do when project is completed, when you need to start to do your packaging, your delivery, your marketing strategies, all of that stuff, which is usually designers do not touch, really want to gain that experience also by making our own project. Why perfumery? It was, I think, more poetic rather than rational choice. Again, one of the thoughts that we're mixing different practices, different backgrounds, and I don't see the borderline between making a visual art or olfactory art, between music and all of that was like really thinking that in intersection of a different industry, of a different practices, the most interesting work lies. So that was really an experiment. Can we take something that we cannot see away, like as a designer, we cannot see fragrance, we cannot see the smell. Can we do create a fragrance and combine this visible and invisible together? So we started to explore here. Could we do a perfumery? We did some perfumery classes also. We realized that it's definitely like would take a lot of time and a lot of study to happen to do a really good perfume, and also to do a collaboration with perfumer would be much more interesting. So we got inspiration from him, he got inspiration from us. Together with perfumer, we developed these fragrances. There's a bit of a story of how we created them, but from a design point of view, when we did that, we also wanted to go with the given limitations. So for example, when you launch the product, you could do for, let's say, a unique packaging, and you need to do a particular MBQ right from a factory to do that. We didn't have that opportunities in our project. Is still not the commercial one at the beginning. It was an experiment, and we wanted to rely more on what is given. So we can do a small batch. We can use already given bottles. So we definitely can do some labels and the paper boxes. That's not the problem, but how we can make the product to stand out and what we can really explore in here. Again, analog and some craftsmanship is always a part of our process in projects. So we decided to give a chance for this to shine in that project and created handmade cups for this fragrance. So we took epoxy, we took material, mixed them together. We were mixing as crazy everything we can see around the studio. We was almost joking that we can encapsulate probably in epoxy, like even a human. So we experimented a lot with the craftsmanship, with the different shapes and sizes. We probably also is more of taking a rest, taking a breath from the work that we always do by the screen. So really cutting the wood, polishing it was really fun at the beginning. Then, of course, when it went into real production, we realized there's quite a bit of limitations, but also we quite enjoyed. So we try to, in here, let the world around us to really drive the material choice, design decisions, and the whole concept behind it was to show beauty of imperfections. So the fragrance itself is quite not standard, really. Not every nose would be in love with this. And we experimented with the packaging also. As a small batch, as everything made by hand and everything made in the studio, we achieved that effect that every bottle become a unique piece. So there is no cups that will look alike, and we even have people hunting for different cups or different retailers telling us like, oh, can you send us next batch with that kind of food or with that kind of food? It's all got a little bit of a storytelling behind, and really become an art piece. It's not really that you buy a bottle and you throw it away. It's really this, the craftsmanship of that stands the test, I guess, of the time. So was a lot of materials, a lot of visuals of how the craftsmanship came into the play and really turned that project into more of an artistic touch and into a sculpture in a way. And another one that I wanted to share, I think it will be the most commercial because this is a skincare brand, is launched it is launched in US as a Korean skincare brand. We were working last year. And in this project, we were looking to create an identity that will convey ideas and good beliefs to teenagers and really boost a bit of a self-expression and self-confidence. So Zvik is a Korean skincare brand, and they do help to create products that will fight acne. So particularly the main product is the pimple patches. And since our target audience are quite young, and we were looking to do product from 14 to 22, I think, but it's always like just really broad idea of a core audience. So we want to be really youthful, we want to be really bold and really expressive, and use a chance to create an identity that will do something good and support youngsters with quite aspirational messages. So do something to make themselves happier with themselves. The name Zwik, translated from Czech as habit, which become the core idea of the project. We decided to take that transformative power of habits into the visual language through making it into a repetition. If I go to the slide, what we did in this identity, we took different shapes, particularly glyphs from the logotype, and turn them into the habits. So we start repeating them, we start reflecting them, mirroring, overlaying until they become really expressive shapes. So we thought that transition from something simple to very big, bold, and impactful is really what are habits in the real life. So you do, if you have a small habit, you repeat it over time, you can get a better health, a better skin conditions, and you can make your world a little better if you just do small things all over again and again. So the same thing applied into identity. And we created some of there's a lot of motion graphics involved in that project, and we turn it into more of a messaging, how we can make this for social media and for other like posters and even tote bags, merchandise, something beyond just a logotype, but the patterns and the graphics, we can really celebrate good habits, really drive that self-expression, be quite extraordinary and expressive in their self. Which I think it's also go quite away from just what expected from the skincare. Usually you show just a lot of, I don't know, quite commercial visuals, but we wanted to take a turn and do more of the messaging and the good beliefs, like promoting good messages and support young auditory. Yeah. That's the 3 projects that I wanted to share. I have a little video actually for Zwik at the end. If you'd like, I can play that also.
Yes, please.
All right. Yep, that's it.
Can I ask one question? There was one problem because we couldn't hear the sound properly. Is the sound of that song, is that like a Korean song?
No, we actually couldn't figure out the language of this.
Oh, right, okay. I'm actually quite listening. It'd be interesting if you can share the link to that song because we couldn't actually hear it properly.
Sure, I can send you the video of the song so you can, yeah.
Have a dance to it. Thanks so much for sharing that. Can I start with the question?
Yeah.
I've seen the fragrance project before, and I was really drawn to the forms of those lids, the caps. And you mentioned that during lockdown, you decided to kind of take that on as your own self-constructed project, which seems to me like a very ambitious project if you haven't gone down that route before. So what did that journey look like? Because there's a lot of components in fragrance making, and the sourcing of the vessels, and during lockdown, obviously the supply chains were very, very kind of restricted. So what did that look like as a kind of like a journey for you? Because those caps look, you said you made them yourself. They're pretty
Not me
impressive
particularly.
looking. Oh, right, okay.
I'm making it. I only picking the right ones. I'm just, oh, this is not polished really well. We need to go on.
Okay. Yeah. So what did the process look like, and how has it kind of spurred you to want to continue with that project, or has it completely put you off making another fragrance project ever again?
Well, first to talk about the journey.
Yeah.
We started it in 2021, right? And it took about a year to launch a 9 month to launch the first fragrance. We didn't launch all of the three at the same time because it's definitely quite overwhelming. It's a completely new market, completely new knowledge that you just cannot put in your hand all at once. It was definitely in the main time that we spent during this 9 months is looking into the supply chains, into finding bottles, pumps, or I think I ordered all possible glass bottles from Chinese factories and figuring out which are breaking out really easily, which are quite durable. Yeah, there was a lot of journey in there, which took the main time. In terms of the concept and idea of making these cups, it was quite straightforward. I think you can compare with the normal design practice when you need to come up with a packaging concept for your client. And making of the cup is also not relied on the supply chain, right? We go to hiking, we can pick up some driftwood. We go to wooden factory to get wood from like leftovers that they're going to throw away. We even use old Christmas trees at the end of every year to make these cups. So the supply chain is much more under control, and it's just about our own time to dedicate to the project to make it happen. If it's answered, right, the process in here. The main thing for the fragrance, when we started, we didn't know how complex it is with the shipping, all of the dangerous good stuff. So it really was another pain for another, I think, a half of the year to discover. And the project is not just a one-off, it's not just a prototype. We actually made the first fragrance, we launched it on the market, and they immediately got attention from retailers and from potential customers who people want to smell it, they want to find it, they want to try it. So it was quite interesting for the no name, no brand, just a new thing on the market immediately grab attention. And we saw also that some retailers took it on board even with one fragrance, which is considered like when you launch fragrance products, you need to have at least 3 at the same time smells for customers to pick. We had just one, it already were taken by retailers. So it led us to, gave us some belief that we can do another two. So we develop another two. So we complete our collection. And by now, yeah, there is a store that sells also in UK. So actually two of them are selling. It's went on a separate section in the studio. So now we have a team who are more dedicated into up and running. The production design stage is completed. Now it's just all about the retailers, relationship with stores and customers. So it's an ongoing project which didn't stop afterwards. And in terms of clients,
I was going to ask, the only thing to add to that is obviously during COVID, did you still have the ability to go and meet with these suppliers, or was it all done remotely?
it was all done remotely. It was like Zoom meetings, Zoom calls, which is sad, especially when we work with perfumer, because you want to be next to each other. What we had to do, we had a Zoom call. He was sending some ingredients to us. We were smelling them over the online session. So it was a lot of like waiting between different stages, but it's worth it.
But there's something quite interesting in that process in its own right, that if you're trying to describe the fragrance, but you have no ability to smell it, I can imagine there's something quite interesting in maybe not even knowing what you're going to get when it gets delivered to you. Not that I'm trying to blur the lines between artistic and design, art and design, like you referred to at the beginning, but there's something for me that's quite interesting in the idea of the explanation of a fragrance profile. You're discussing that without actually being able to physically meet somebody, and then that fragrance arrives and trying to work out whether or not that fulfills all of the things that you had in your head as you were describing it.
We did it, I think, together. We had initial ideas of what we want a fragrance to be about, and we sent these visual briefs to perfumer, and the perfumer worked on how he translated from olfactory point of view. When he sent it back to us, there was two different examples, two different vials with a complete different takes on the same concept. So we had an opportunity to pick which one we think is more like closer to what we had in mind. But also, we always work with clients, right? So we all like when client gave us the freedom. So why don't we do the same with the perfumer? So it was really easygoing and really trusting his expertise. We just wanted to make sure this is represent the concept, like is it connected with what we had in mind or is not? Yeah, so it was a lot of collaborative processes and names we developed after we smelled the fragrance. We had just a working name like a beige or black or silver fragrance before we actually got into this naked dance and a dead air. It was like one thing was inspiring another. It was really an exchange between two parties.
Thanks.
And in terms of the clients, which is also interesting, we thought, would be other brands like to work with us because we had our own product? Will we be our competitors in the market if we do it? Actually, we do have constantly inquiries for developing fragrances, and we're already working on a couple of the projects for other clients, which they find more in the favor. They do like to work with us because they know we have experience. They know that we know the supply chain. They know that we know what kind of what kind of packaging it should be, what we should put there. We have an expertise that all the design studios don't have in that market, which also works really for them as a bonus rather than they are quite scared or don't want to work with us. So it's in the positive side.
Yeah, well, that was actually going to be you basically just answered the question I was going to ask, is that if you are producing your own product, does that mean that from a kind of a commercial practice that it would feel almost like you're competing against yourself to design another brand in a competitive space?
Not at all. And even more, we start finding more friends and people in the fragrance industry, talking to other brands has really become more like, I think there's not much of this competition that everyone would want to be so protective. People want to meet, people want to share, they want to exchange. Not a problem at all.
Cool. I have a question.
Yep.
So much was really great. And I was just interested in the art versus design, maybe because that's my problem every day. It's a question that I ask myself every single day. So I could relate to what you were saying. And my question is, do you feel like, is there any form of expression they feel like, oh, I would love to experiment that form because I feel like I could be more myself. Or if you actually traffic fire now with what you're doing and you feel like you can express yourself as much as you want with what you're doing.
You mean on the client projects?
In general, actually. In general, not just for the clients.
I think for exploration and expression, for me, a lot of like a starting point is a client and a brief with a client. So it's never just I go and like, oh, I want to go blue today and I feel blue today and I would do everything in blue. That's never the case. At the in the beginning is really you looking at the brief, you analyzing, you understand the client, what he's looking for. Is a lot of, I would say, like, I always feel like you're not a designer, you're a psychologist. You need to understand where they come from, what they want to achieve, what are the dreams, and you like mirroring their ideas into the visual world. So like as a big client, we're talking all over about habits and how it's a simple repetition. If you just wash your face before you go to the bed can actually affect the condition. And we're like, what means to repeat? Like you repeat it all over again, is a habit, what it will be. And we start thinking about repeating the same shapes, and we start repeating first circles, then lines, then glyphs. Then we're like, it's quite interesting. Then we start stretching them because it's connected to youthfulness. So the whole like experiments, they starting with the client and the brief, and they all fold. Just what you need to do, you just need to give it a try. You need to put it on the paper, not just stick it in your head, I guess. Really make it visual, and then if it's the right direction, you will be having more and more trials and errors within that direction to get into the right visual shape, which also at the end, because it's commercial work, has to answering the brief. There sometimes you take a side road, maybe you went a little bit away from the brief. Like when you work with a client, you want to be really like when we experiment to do something that probably will be like a quite literal representation of the brief, and sometimes you do directions that are completely different or unexpected by the client to be seen. Sometimes client go for direction they never thought about it at all, because they see it, they see where they're coming from, it answer the brief, but it's a completely different road, and they do enjoy to see this is what they think it will be, and this is something they never thought about, but it still works because answers the initial question.
Thank you for your answer, and I agree. So the next question would be like, do you think an artist, for instance, a painter, is completely free from that feedback? Not having a proper client. I mean, the client might be somebody else, might be society, I don't know. But do you think an artist is completely, free?
I don't think they're free either.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
What
What do you think? What do you think? Do you think they are free?
Yeah, no. I think society, once you start looking into, art story and the politics behind certain type of art, there's always politics behind it. I mean, especially in the known artists, society is the client. So I do feel like there is a feedback that they kind of take into account at some point. It's never like just freedom. That's what I think. It's kind of the answer that I give myself because it brings me comfort, because then I'm like, at the end of the day, we all have a client, so we kind of have to adapt on that. We're not completely free in a way.
You're right. And I was presenting a perfume project with the DND a few weeks ago, and I got one of the questions from audience when they asked, do you think that you got DND for your fragrance project because it's a personal, you don't have client, you don't have feedback, and you can make whatever you want, which for me is a kind of like, absolutely no, you are your own clients, and when you are your own client, it's the worst case because you have no clue what you want and no one going to help you. It's like a nightmare, right? So you want to be perfect, but you're never going to be perfect. It's just like, I'd rather to work with a client than with myself. So I do think that it's not, we shouldn't think about is it personal work, commercial work, or artwork, and make any differences between them when we practicing, when we're creating it. I think we should all of them like act exactly the same way as we would for all of the project. Don't make the difference. Like I, whenever work, my personal project or client, I don't make the line between them. I just go crazy, full on all the time. Just I want to do a cool result no matter what. I think it's wrong to divine them. Divine, yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hey, I just have one question. Maybe related to something like the Hong Kong design industry. So
Oh.
yeah. So probably because because Hong Kong is a small city, everyone know, and then we doesn't have a long cultures of design and art. But the standpoint of what Studio Oddities and what you do is all the way keep balancing both sides of the art and design, which is what I think is a new energy to the industry. So how you can balancing both items of art and design, how you do it, great, I think. Yeah.
You mean within the, like in Hong Kong, you mean that industry of design is not that developed and the client
Yeah.
is not looking
Yeah, I
for.
feel like it's quite more about restrictions and doesn't have quite a lot of the sense about art and design. So which is quite hard to persuade them to go for something like the art standard and reach out something like art pieces of the works.
Right.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good question, and you're never gonna be protected. Like it's
Yeah.
you can try to guess, would you work well with a client, or would your relationship will be as productive and fruitful as you wish. But I think there is a certain responsibility that you take as a designer, no matter you are creating what you really think is the best, or you do accept client feedback and make what they think is the best. You might disagree at the end. Like we all sometimes face that moment that we think that best way and a client pursue completely different direction and nothing you can do. Like you use all of your arguments to convince them to do something else and they still want to do what they want. You need to do your job well. Like you're not able to say, this client, I'm not going to put any effort and I will do whatever layout for them. No, even if you disagree, you need to do a good layout and like pay attention to details or to craftsmanship or maybe color palette. There's always some details that you can do a little better than everyone else doing in the market. And even with a very conservative client, you can still push this little bit of the boundary. And I believe maybe small habits stick in my mind. With these little pushes every time with all of the challenging clients, you can actually raise the bar of the industry, even in Hong Kong. And that's like in case if you already work with the client. Of course, when you start the work, you do have meetings, you do talk to each other. And if you feel that client is not looking for what you're doing, you need to be quite bold enough to say, I'm not able to take that project because I'm not the best candidate to do that job. I always ask the client whenever we feel like this is some at the very introduction stages, when you talk to each other and I feel that the task is not about being creative, it's just to, take the logotype, put in the brochure and here we go to print. And I'm asking like, are you sure you want to pay that money for that time that we will spend with getting results that you can get from, like, I know, AI these days? This is also lead me to that thinking, if you do need very basic, very functional design. These days, there's so many templates, so many free resources. AI gonna be able to do that soon. So why then you go to creative studio, design studio, and asking that many people to work on that project? You can save time and money.
It's a very good answer.
Yeah.
I had one question, which it sort of ties a little bit with what Ben was asking, and it's sort of two-part question. So, in your origin story, I didn't actually catch the country where you were born, and then I was wondering kind of what led you to end up being in Hong Kong, and then with that kind of belief around the sort of design and art point, did that come almost as the result of that rejection of sort of education? And did it come before you decided to name the studio Oddity? and did it have any influence in that name? That kind of, I know that's a big, question, but I feel like it's sort of it's tied together a little bit. So yeah.
Well, I am a person who always reject to say I'm from a particular country. I don't know. I don't feel any connection with the place when I was born. And when people say like your childhood memories are very important, and I know that was a part of this presentation to tell about my childhood memories, how I became a designer. I am more a person who go against. I'm like moving away as much as possible from where I'm from and what was my like surroundings in a childhood. To make it plain and simple, I was born in Russia, I was born in Siberia, and there's not much I can tell about this place in the positive, especially in the current years. I moved from, I always like when I was a child, when I was a teenager, I always wanted to leave the country. And I think for now, what, about 15 years, we are, no, a little less, maybe 14 years, we are away from a country. And first was Dubai, and then was in Hong Kong. And I probably, like when we moved to Hong Kong, it wasn't like, I've always dreamed to live in Hong Kong. My husband at the time, he was working in the food and beverage industry, and he was saying, let's go to Hong Kong. It's very interesting because there's a lot of things going on. It's very like mixed culture. There has a lot of local flavor food and drinks and a lot of influence from the Western. So it's really East and West to come together. So that's how we came to Hong Kong for the first time. And when we were here for the first kind of trip to get a look at the country, to get a look in the city, we actually fell in love. We felt really comfortable in here. It's a beautiful city. It's a lot of nature. You live on an island, you have a water, and you can go to the hike, and you have also skyscrapers and like very busy business center. So like what you can dream of, you can have everything. And also it's extremely beautiful. Like there's not much of gray. All of the buildings are pink, blue, green, violet. You have some different flowers in the pots everywhere in the streets, and it's super safe. I mean, like what you can dream really, and the neon signs at night. We moved in Hong Kong, and when we were moving here, I was keep working as a remote designer for Dubai. And when I was working for agency, and I was like more kind of transition job, I would say, wasn't much passionate about it. So when it come to the moment I'm in Hong Kong and I don't want to work anymore with Dubai, what I do next? And I realized that Hong Kong is not a great place for designer to be or creative. There is not much of the choices that you have to join like a lot of cool design studios. They're usually really, really small. It's like a micro studio, usually one-man band. And of course, they're not going to hire me as an expat living in a country, which I need to pay for my apartment, which is much more expensive than living with the family, and so on and so on. So I had a choice either to be a freelancer, a consultant, and then to join a big agency to earn money, as everyone doing in Hong Kong when they are arriving. I didn't want it to go that way. I didn't want it to sell my soul. I wanted to be really true to what I'm doing. So I started practicing as the consultant, like art direction, web design, digital design. And it's all naturally started going into the studio. So I got the first, I was intern, then was employee, then was another employee. And at some point I realized I actually have 7 people with me and I have a studio. It was like really, I think happening all naturally and wasn't really a plan or aim. I just know that we need resources to do that. I need a person who's stronger in motion graphic than I am. I need a front-end developer because I cannot do everything myself. So you have to be collaborative process and exchange. The team formed, but it wasn't like I need to open the studio in Hong Kong. Also, what was different is I had the name of a studio way before it actually became a studio. I wanted to hide myself behind the name. I never wanted to be in a situation everyone knows Alice Mourou, she's a designer. I wanted to have like, something like in between me and the client I can hide a little bit behind, at least at the beginning, and try it out, will it work? So name of Oddity came out, David Bowie. It's so direct. It's, It was exactly the time I was sitting and thinking of how I should name the studio, and like couldn't sleep, couldn't find the right word. And then the news about his death came public, and I felt like Oddity. It just like, immediately came into my mind. It was very, I will say, emotional rather than a rational choice, because I really love his art, I really love his music, and thought that it's going to be a tribute. And by that name, at the beginning of the studio, I was constantly reminding that I'm not going to do just a standard commercial template design. I'm going to be a rebel. I'm going to be different, because it's a tribute to David Bowie. How can I do, a kind of traditional stuff? So that was the first 2 years. And then now, I think last couple of years, I started realizing that Oddity wasn't just like emotional choice. Well, my father said it's something like, I was always crazy, and the name of the studio is translated in Russian as crazy. So he like, here you go, right for you. But also it got into that oddity of the way how we work, the way how we perceive them. Like, we don't have project managers, for example. We really just, there's a designer, there's a client, we all work together directly. I wanted to try to do a completely different structure, the way how we present project also, because I don't have education in the graphic design. I have no clue how it should be done. Like, how you work, guys, how we work, probably going to be same in many things, but also would be different in many things, because I just have no clue how others are doing the same job. So it started being quite a part of the process, and then we started being more and more connected to art and this experiments. So the name started unfolding and in the way shaping myself. I think last year, particularly, like Oddity affected me much more than in the first years of the studio. It's a long answer.
That's very good. Sorry, I was gonna say, it's funny how the reason why I asked the question about the name is because it felt like it fitted very much the narrative you were sort of telling as you kind of were going through your work and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting how it was a really gut instinctive choice, but has come almost to have the right meaning behind it anyway, just through the sort of nature of how you sort of approach your practice and stuff. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, when we came to perfume, and we were thinking to name it completely different. We didn't want it to mix up Oddity Studio and Oddity Fragrance. I was like, no, we should do a different name, which spent a few months of looking different words. And at the end, like, perfumer said, guys, you're Oddity. Why don't you name perfume Oddity? We're like, really? And we did it. And now I'm preparing my first exhibition in Hong Kong, which will be dedicated to neglected art of design. And I was thinking of the name of this exhibition, and do you know how I name it? I call it Oddities. My friends are joking and saying, oh, Alice, do you know that all the words exist in the world? You don't need to name everything Oddity.
Yeah, thank you. That was really good, really interesting.
Thank you so much for joining us. I feel like is it now the next day? Is it now like 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, one or three. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll let you go, but thank you so much for the talk. It was really interesting, and the story was really profound. So
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting. It was a pleasure to meet all of you guys, and thank you for your time and all of your questions. It's really inspiring to exchange and discuss with people, especially for being in Hong Kong, quite remote.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.